everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Zenzo with Tazawa Tanks, and today we're going to do a full tour of this room. This is my fish room. It is essentially my basement. I live in San Francisco, California, and this is my basement, and part of it I've turned into a fish room. So normally I would kind of do like a talking to the camera kind of thing, but let's just jump right into it. It's been a long time. We don't want to see my face on camera. Let's just get into the tanks. All right, so we're going to go around the fish room tank by tank, looking at everything, talking about the fish, talking about whatever's going on, and in a lot of cases, what isn't going on. And if you have any questions on a specific tank during this video, go ahead and comment down below in the comments, and I will look for those and ask. And probably what I'll do is on the Aquarium Co-op forum, I actually have a fish room thread, and I'll link that in the description, and I'll put that in the pinned comment below. And if you do have a question or something, or if you want to kind of continue on with the conversation about this fish room, that's probably the best place because I'll see it more readily there, and it kind of keeps everything in order, so it might be a fun place to kind of hang out. So anyway, this right here is a 125-gallon aquarium that I have set up as a Tanganyikan aquarium. So Tanganyikan fish are from East Africa, Lake Tanganyika, and in here we have kind of a community tank. So in here we've got shell dwellers, we've got Neolamprologus multifasciatus, which we can see there. I do have over down here, which I'll get some B-roll of, over there by that shell right over there, if my finger's showing up on camera. That is one of those rare shell dwellers that I had a long time ago, the Lamprologus, which I only have the one now. We also have in here some of the Cyprichromis that I brought home from Washington, from Corey, so we can see one there. There's another one swimming right there in the background. Unfortunately, those are the only two that survived from the original group, but these two are doing well. And then we also have some, what do we have in here? We have some Transcriptus Tanzania, Julidochromis Transcriptus Tanzania, and these are these ones right here with kind of that black and blue kind of banding. I really love this fish. They're a fun, kind of a rock-dwelling cichlid. We do have a big calvus in here, which tends to hide in the background, but I'll get some B-roll. I'll throw some food in there and we'll get some B-roll of that fish. But overall, I do like this aquarium quite a bit. It is just kind of a big African cichlid community tank. These are all African cichlids. They're not like these kind of African cichlids that you guys might be used to, which we'll get to here in a second. But these are all cichlids from Africa, hence they are African cichlids. I do have a 3D background in here from Universal Rocks, and I also have these fake rocks. So that's an algae-covered fake rock. That's an algae-covered fake rock. I actually drilled some holes in this one, so one, it lets kind of water pass in and out, which doesn't, it kind of helps to reduce any fouling of water, but then also the fish actually go inside and kind of use it as like a fish house or a fish hut. And then over here we've got a stack of lava rock and plants. I've got kind of a weird thing going on where I've got some sword plants just because I had some extra swords growing in another tank and I cut them off and put them in here. And we have some Vallisneria, which are the tall ones growing up, and then some Anubias attached to the rockwork. But overall, kind of a fun tank. I just like to sit in my chair and just kind of look at this tank and look at all the activity, and the fact that it's a 6-foot tank and, you know, houses a lot of fish, kind of a fun thing. Now moving over here, let me just move the tripod. We have the gold ocellatus tank. Now, these are also a shell dweller, and they are in their own tank for a reason. These guys are really aggressive, very territorial. In fact, even though they're a very small fish, they will go after me and attack my hand. So if I were to put my hand in the tank right now, you'd probably see one of the adult fish like going after me and trying to bite me. So in here we have, this is a 37-gallon acrylic tank. It's about, I think it's 36 inches wide. I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's a pretty good footprint. And we just have a bunch of the shells in there for the shell dwellers and some rock work. As far as filtration, this one is using a sponge filter with the Easy Flow kit. I should have mentioned that the 125 is powered by, filtered by sponge filters attached to the Aquarium Co-op power head. And then I also have a Zis bubble bed biomoving filter in there as well, which I like, and that's behind the background. These fish, beautiful, aggressive. Can't really put anything else in there. And they've spawned. You know, master breeder Dean. I sent Dean a bunch of these fish a couple of years ago, and he had them in his fish room for a while. Yeah, so basically they're just my shell dwellers. Now, down below, this tank is pretty much empty, so not a whole lot to see here. Probably if I put a little food in there, I could coax the fish out, which maybe I'll do. I'll get some B-roll, but I just have 2 small mbuna in here. Now, the reason why is before we had this tank. So this tank is a 75-gallon tank that used to be an African cichlid tank with a bunch of large mbuna. I moved all of those fish out, and when I did, I missed 2 very, very tiny fry, which I saw later when I filled the tank back up. And so I caught them and put them in here, and I'm going to let them grow out until they're large enough, and then I'll put them in some other aquarium, or maybe they'll join the other fish that I gave away. So that's that tank. Not a whole lot going on. Over here, you might remember this brackish tank. I need to clean the glass because there's a little bit of algae. There's no animals in there other than maybe a couple of Malaysian trumpet snails. This is a brackish tank with Java fern, which has been the only plant that's done well for me in brackish systems. This has been set up for a couple plus years now. I used to have a figure 8 puffer in there, and not sure what I'm going to do long term. I think I might get another figure 8 puffer or something like that, but for now it's just kind of a tank that, you know, looks good with the coralline algae and, you know, the plants growing once I clean the algae off the glass. That is a 20-gallon tank, and that is a 20-gallon tank. Over here we have the 90-gallon African cichlid Peacock or Alana Cara tank. This is kind of a unique size. It's acrylic. It is a 5 feet wide tank. So most 90-gallon tanks are similar to like a 75, where they're going to be 4 feet. This one is in fact 5 feet long, so it's a little bit better for these kind of fish. And in here we have a lot of really old peacocks that I've had for quite a few years. In fact, I made a video talking about fish getting old. I'm trying to remember. So it's 2024 right now. I think I might have fish in here from like 2016, 2017. So, you know, quite old at this point, you know, 7, 8 years old. And, you know, this big guy there, sulfur head, kind of has that, I don't know if it's, you know, what exact species of this is, if it has any autopharynx lithobates in that or something like that, but beautiful, beautiful fish. And just a real big unit. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but that fish is easily nose to tail, gosh, over 7 inches. That's a big dude. We've got some other big peacocks in here too. I do have a whole bunch upstairs that I'll show in another video sometime, and they are basically offspring from these fish, and they're starting to color up. So I'm going to move some down here so we kind of have more fish in this tank. But just love this tank, you know, pretty easy as far as maintaining it. It's got a bunch of crushed coral for substrate. I do have the 3D background. Let me see if I can make that show up. Kind of have to move the lighting to see the background, but it's a black Universal Rocks 3D background in there. And filtration wise, we have a Zis filter in there, which you can kind of see hiding back there. And then there's also an FX4, which is underneath the cabinet. So that is this tank. Let me just get a chair out of the way. We'll go on to the next tank here. This next tank is one of my favorite aquariums. This is my Saulosi tank. I've talked a lot about these fish. Pseudotropheus saulosi, Chindongo saulosi. They are a dwarf mbuna. They have dimorphism where the males and females are different. So all of the yellow fish are either females or juveniles or babies. And all of the dark and light blue banded fish are males. And this is 75-gallon acrylic tank. We have, again, crushed coral as a substrate. We got tons of rock work in there, tons of dry rock, which helps to buffer and keep the the water hard and high pH. And these guys are fantastic. I love these fish. If you've watched the Aquarium Co-op channel and you've seen Corey's African cichlid tank, I think it's like a 150, or I forgot what size tank that is. It's a big tank that Elmer used to be in, the turtle, and he's turned that into a Saulosi tank. I actually took a bunch of these fish and shipped them up to him, and that was kind of fun, and he's enjoying these fish now. Down below, we have a 40 breeder, and it's just kind of a jungle tank with a couple of goldfish. You can see them there, and one pleco. That is a albino bristlenose that tends to hide. I'll probably get some B-roll later. I think it's underneath a piece of wood over there. But these two are basically just kind of my pet fish that help me in cleaning up duckweed and that kind of a thing. So if I have duckweed on a net, I can dip the net in here. They'll eat it. If I put them in another tank, they'll help to clean up the duckweed. And yeah, just kind of no long-term plans for this tank. I kind of like it just as it is, with just kind of something simple. It's very low maintenance, obviously a very small bio load. This tank does stay a little bit cooler, so this room is heated by the dehumidifier, but because this tank is low and uncovered, it stays a little bit cooler, so it's just fine for these fancy golds. And yeah, I like them. They're fun. I haven't kept goldfish for a while, besides a bunch that I have outside on a pond, but yeah, fun fish. All right, so since I talked about this tank earlier, I'll just mention it. There's no fish in here right now, just plants. And my goal is to turn this into a planted aquarium and do something different. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do. I just know that I want a planted aquarium because it's a lot less maintenance for me, which just makes my life a lot easier, less water changes, that kind of thing. And I possibly am going to move some other fish that I have in another aquarium, which I'll show you shortly, into this tank. But for now, I'm just kind of letting the plants get acclimated. I'll plant them, and I will do a video on this tank very soon. This is a 75-gallon tank. Down below, we have a 40 breeder, and there's not much to say about this aquarium because the fish hide all of the time. In here, we've got the blue topaz cichlids. And really the only way I can shoot them is to kind of hide in here and get out a camera with a long lens. So I'll throw some B-roll in there. But basically, these fish, they hide all the time. I am probably going to give them away as they're not really bringing me joy anymore. And maybe someone else can enjoy them. So I just don't think it's a good tank placement for these fish. They're quite shy. I had them in another tank before. I moved them here because I'm shutting that tank down, and they eat and everything. They just don't come out when I'm around. Moving over here, we have a 75-gallon paludarium that is brackish. I've made tons of videos about this aquarium or paludarium. In here, we have the African mudskippers, a very unique fish that can live out of the water. Let me actually move the light over there real quick. So as we can see, there are fish that live on the surface. They actually have adapted over, millions of years to live out of the water. Even though they have gills, they can take in oxygen through their gills like normal fish, but they can also take in oxygen through their skin if their skin is wet. So they spend most of their time out of the water, even though they can swim underwater. And quite fun. I love these fish. I've got lots of videos about them. You can check out on my channel. Just type in mudskippers and Tazawa tanks, and you'll probably see a dozen videos that feature these fish. The only thing about them is these ones are the Africans, and they are quite large. You may not be able to see on camera. I'm going to go put my hand next to it and see if you can kind of get a scale as far as size. So not sure if that showed up on camera, but that fish is as long as my hand, is thicker than a hot dog. They're quite big, and they have very sharp teeth, and when they bite, it hurts. So that's the only thing about them that scares me, is sometimes they get too excited when I feed them, and they will jump up, and I just have to make sure my hand is out of the way so they don't take a little needle bite out of me. Moving down below, we have another 40 breeder. And in this aquarium, if I can focus on it, in this aquarium, we have blue acara, electric blue acara, and we have a bunch of albino corridora. It's a very fun tank. The fish are not shy. What I'm actually thinking of is once I get this 75-gallon tank planted and established, I think I'm going to move these acara in there, as that will give them more space. They're big, but they don't really beat up on each other. They all get along, and I just feel like moving them from the 40 breeder to a 75 is going to give them more space. And because these fish are not hard on plants, it's really nice. They're one of the larger cichlids that leave plants alone for the most part. They don't dig, they don't eat them. They're very good looking, and I've been very happy with these fish, and they're quite beautiful. So I think they will look good a little bit higher up and in the larger tank. And as far as the corridora, maybe they'll go with them. Maybe they'll stay here and do something different. I don't know. But yeah, fun tank. Ballast area, and that's about it. Moving over here, we have a 29-gallon aquarium. This is my 5-star general tank. Now, I've had these fish for several years. They've spawned for me. I sold a bunch of the babies a few times to fish stores and things like that. They used to be in a 40 breeder. I moved them into the 29 just because they don't really need a whole lot of space. The male doesn't beat up the female really. In fact, he leaves her alone a lot more now, and there's a couple of reasons why. One reason is she's not really spawning anymore, so they're not trying to spawn. But the other thing, which is a little bit more sad, is he's getting old and his health is starting to decline. And I noticed that he kind of has like some swelling going on, so he might have like, some kind of organ failure or something like that going. He still eats and he's still active and will, get super excited when I come up and feed the tank. But I'm a little bit worried that, he's not long for this world, and yeah, I might lose him soon. So I'm just kind of letting them do their thing and live out their elderly life in this tank. So I'm not, getting rid of this fish or anything, just hoping that he hangs on for a little while longer. Down below here, we have a 10-gallon tank, and nothing really exciting about this tank. It's just a little planted tank with some white cloud minnows in there. They've spawned a few times. It's open top. It's on the low end as far as the height in the fish room, so it stays a little bit cooler, which is good for them. Got some Amazon swords and way too much duckweed. Maybe I'll put a goldfish in there to help clean up the duckweed. But I'm actually thinking about maybe moving those white clouds upstairs into my office. We've talked about that tank recently. There was some other ideas about ember tetras and different things, so not sure. But yeah, they're fun fish. They're endangered in the wild, not really in the wild anymore. So just kind of a fun fish to keep. All right, this next tank, let me just move the light again here just to make it show off a little better. So this tank right here is a 60 breeder. It's a fun tank size. It's the first time I've kept this tank size. I'm actually falling in love with this tank size. So I can see myself in the future, like in some future fish room builds or, tank builds, of using this size like underneath maybe a 125 or something. This is a 60 breeder, so it's the same height and depth as far as front to back as a 40 breeder, but instead of it being 36 inches wide, it's 48 inches wide. So you get another foot of width, and also another 20 gallons of water. So just kind of a fun tank size. We've got kind of a community of fish going on in here. We've got some cardinal tetras. You've got some stir-by corridora. I've got an epistogramma in there. I've got a couple Amazon puffers. Unfortunately, the Amazon puffers don't like to eat on snails, even though I've got so many snails in that tank. So they have the long teeth thing going on, and I did the surgery once, and I'm not doing it again. So hopefully they can just kind of manage. They eat well. They just have the long teeth. Down below, we have another brackish tank. We can see the mangrove growing out of it all the way up to there. In here, we have a green spotted puffer, and this has a 3D background wall that I built. This green spotted puffer is super cool. It comes up to the glass and will glass surf. You can see them right there, kind of doing the glass surfing thing. And, you know, nothing really in here anymore. I used to have night gobies, and they all passed over the last few years. The last one passed away a few months ago. So now we have just the one green spotted puffer and great snail muncher, fun fish, kind of a solo pet in this 40 breeder brackish system. Over here we have the oldest aquarium that I own as far as currently. I think I bought this glass tank in 2013, maybe something like that. Yeah, 2013, 2012, 2013. It's a bow front, 16-gallon bow front. It's had a bunch of different fish over the years. Right now, it's just a Vallisneria jungle with a bunch of mutt guppies in there. And yeah, that's about it. Not much to say. Just a bunch of guppies. Kind of a fun little tank to keep. And I need to do some trimming and pulling some plants and putting those in other tanks, obviously, because it's a jungle. But it also makes tank maintenance easy because the plants absorb all the nitrates and it makes the water quality good. Down below we have another aquarium that is brackish. This is a 13-gallon tank or something like that. A 13-gallon rimless, and in here we have the top hat blenny. I got a pair of these from Steenfod Aquatics a few years ago. I had them both for a few years, and one passed away after maybe having it for about 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years, and then I've got one left, and spends most of its time kind of hiding in the rock or hiding in the barnacle, but very active when I feed, comes out, eats freeze-dried brine shrimp, frozen brine shrimp, algae, loves to eat spirulina flakes and any kind of algae that I scrape off of things. So kind of more of a vegetarian diet that I substitute or supplement with like brine shrimp. Over here, another brackish system, probably my favorite setup in this whole fish room. This is a 40-gallon tank that is brackish. That's actually a waterfall, so there's a pump down there. It pumps water, and it kind of just trickles over some moss and some saswassertang. That stuff. I'll put it in the, I'll put text of it here. It's hard to pronounce. But basically what I did is I put that on the coral, that dry rock there. I put some over there on those pieces of wood and rock, and it just grows just from the humidity. And in the water, we've got a mono shrimp, we have bumblebee gobies, we've got nearite snails, Malaysian trumpet snails, and then we have the Indian mudskippers that I love. These little guys are so fun. Same as the Africans as far as their behavior, you know, being out of the water. We can see them kind of just hanging out on the rocks. But they don't bite because they're tiny. So they're like as thin as like a pen or a Sharpie or a pencil or something. So they cannot inflict any damage. They're much, much tinier. You cannot have these with the Africans because the Africans would be able to eat these in about 2 bites. So do not put African and Indian mudskippers together. Down below, we have another glass aquarium, glass or a rimless tank. I think it's also like 13 gallons or something like that. We've got an apisto in there. I've got some, what else do I have in there? I have some autocinclus and just snails and that kind of thing. It's kind of a jungle tank. Long term, I don't know. I think I kind of want to take this tank apart and redo it, or not 100% sure. I might put that apisto in this 60 breeder with this other apisto. It's large enough to where they can't fight really because they can kind of have their own spot in the tank and stay away from each other. So I might move this apisto over to that tank and then do something different here. But for now, it's just kind of a easy little planted tank. Couple more tanks to show you. This right here is a brackish tank again. Sorry for the reflection. Let me see if I can get a better shot. Well, not a whole lot better on the reflection because there's a white wall on the opposite side here. But this is a brackish tank that I have a bunch of mollies in. Now, you might have remembered if you've seen older videos on this channel, I had some what do we have in here? Fiddler crabs, and there's actually like a shelf that is all up there that I made kind of the same way I make the 3D backgrounds. And the fiddler crabs, the problem that I had is they never lived very long. You know, 8 months, maybe 6, 8, 10 months, never like longer than a year. And so I don't know, maybe I'll try again. Maybe I'll choose like some smaller ones that are obviously younger and let them, do their thing. But just a bunch of mollies in here that are living in brackish water. If you don't know, mollies can live anywhere from freshwater to saltwater. So I have them in this setup. This is what is this? This is a 55-gallon tank. So 4 feet wide, a little bit narrower. But yeah, it was just kind of a fun setup to have with, mollies in brackish water. And then lastly, down below, we have another Saulosi tank. So in here, we have a bunch of juveniles, as you can see, because they're all yellow and they're not large enough to be all females yet. These were actually a spawn right after the spawn of the fish that I sent up to Corey. It was another spawn right after that. And I pulled the female and had her spit in this tank. And they're just growing out. It's a 20-gallon tank. It is bare bottom. People sometimes they ask me about, the water and bare bottom. I do have a bunch of crushed coral and bags in this tank. And eventually I'm going to probably just move these fish into the other Saulosi tank, the 75-gallon tank. My original plans were to move them upstairs and do a whole different setup up there, but some circumstances have changed, and I'm not sure I want to do that build. I might actually break that tank down and get rid of that tank. And then lastly, back here, there used to be a tank right there, but it's empty other than just some water. And that's where some other fish lived, and it's a 65-gallon tank that I'm going to be taking down. And eventually I'm going to put some shelving there and kind of make more space for all my supplies. You can see the new Aquarium Co-op boxes there that are now printed. And that whole box is full of Aquarium Co-op stuff. So a lot of stuff. And then back here is kind of the inner workings of the fish room. The central air pump is housed back here. I've got a sink back here, how I do all my water changes. We got a brine shrimp hatchery there. I've got a bunch of fish foods that I feed out. And the dehumidifier sits back there. So yeah, that is the fish room. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this tour. I appreciate you staying here until the very end. I will pop up another video for you guys to check out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Comment down below, check me out on the forum, and we'll catch you on the next one.